And welcome back to the Askari cast. My name is Rod Van Blake, author of the Ancient Illumination series and Yambani Chronicles, and I'm joined once again by Jocelyn Short.
Yo.
She's a graphic artist, illustrator, and she also has her own story called Bears coming out. We're patiently waiting for that to debut. And today we are talking about Ironheart, streaming currently on Disney Plus. I think it came out last week on like the 25th or something like that, 24th, 25th of
Something
June.
like that.
Yeah. There are currently 3 episodes. We'll be getting 3 more episodes tomorrow. So if you have not watched the first 3 episodes, please uh, do
Watch
yourself
that
a
before you watch this.
yeah, watch that. And we're live right now, but this will be left up on Spotify. We're going to do the full audio, not full, excuse me, video will be up. Uh, have you read the Ironheart comics?
I haven't, and I intend to read them
Okay.
before tomorrow's episode.
Yeah. I haven't delved into the comics too much, so I'm strictly going to be talking about the MCU portrayal. We were introduced to this character in the second Black Panther movie, Wakanda Forever, and we kind of take off after that in the first episode called "Take Me Home," where we see Riri Williams at MIT, and she's having some trouble. She's got her Ironheart armor suit that she's made there, and we can see she's been causing a bit of a ruckus. I've been seeing a lot of complaints online about this show, but I honestly like it.
Love it.
It's real, it's got heart, and there's substance to it, despite all the things that people are kind of complaining about. She's obviously a genius. Been given an opportunity as a result of the Stark Foundation that funded her partially at least, and got her into MIT, which we know is a hard school to get into. And she claims to want to be iconic, so she's taking a whole bunch of risks. My girl is hustling. Apparently, she's
Mhm.
selling homework, and some of her experiments have been like physically damaging to property and people. We see I don't know what the one character, the white dude, the bald headed guy with the glasses. We see him in the office as I think it's one of the deans of the school, and he are talking to Riri, explaining basically they're about to kick her out of school because she's damaging stuff, and they have a hardline policy on plagiarism. She's basically hustling, making money, selling people homework, and not only at her school, but pretty much all the schools on like the East Coast. She's selling science projects, homework, whatever it is, and so that goes against their plagiarism rules. And for that reason, they kick her out. And she tries to save face. She tries to kind of I take whole responsibility and I apologize and moving forward. I just think maybe y'all just keep giving me a push and keep funding this. We can make some things happen that are really going to be iconic, and she wants to be remembered in something that's a real scientific epiphany. She doesn't want to do homework and just homework for the sake of she's not into the academia of it. She wants to make some type of scientific breakthroughs, I think is what it is. um and of
I
course, yeah.
remember specifically she said she doesn't want to do homework because it's stuff that she's already solved. Like, and that she had explained she has to explain the homework to the teachers.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't want to do just assignments and do, and that's what they want. She wants. She thinks that they want her to work by numbers and just have this cool little school academic schedule and go through the rigmarole as a regular college student. And she's like, I'm not a regular college student. You're not gonna make me be small. I'm gonna do my own thing. I just need y'all to get on the hype train with me, and we can do something that really matters to the world. And they're like, the sister was kind of funny. The dean, she was like, "That's trash. Like, you making excuses, and that's trash."
Mhm.
But in certain essences, I think this character, as much like I said, as much as the complaints I've seen, this character to me is relatable because we all know that person that is really smart, book smart, but maybe not common sense smart. And we see, I think that theme comes up a lot in this show.
I think I agree with you. I think for her it's the reverse, where she is street smart, and she's not great at playing within confines. like
Mm,
existing confines. Um, or at least she'll, I think she's learning, she's trying to, I think what this show is getting at for her is like her understanding like what the boundaries are between an organization and what they want versus how, finessing a system or just trying to make a way, and like where those lines kind of blur, you
mm.
know, like trying to figure that out, cuz like she's very street smart, uh and she's trying to get by. Uh, she's trying to find her way through, but only her way.
Okay. My only contradiction is that then like I would ask then why doesn't she see through Hood earlier if Street Smarts is the type of a game?
What do you mean? Why doesn't she see through Hood earlier? What do you mean?
Yeah, Hood, the guy who's seeming to be like the low level boss that we're
Oh
introduced
yeah,
to in
yeah,
this
yeah.
show. Um, Very early on, there were signs that this was going to be bad business, and she doesn't see through that quick enough for me to give her her street cred and her
That's fair.
street sense.
That's fair. I think
We
she
also,
does. I think what he was promising was almost kind of unlimited funds to do
yeah,
what she wanted, and so she was willing to overlook the obvious red flags of this
yeah.
guy, you know. So I wonder if that is like, if that is, a street smart thing to do. Like if cuz you know, I'm from the suburbs. I don't know nothing about that. So I don't know if like ignoring red flags based on a high number, if that is,
Yeah,
like more or less likely in the streets,
yeah.
you know.
Well, basically, the thing that kind of annoys me, like you know what kind of money she's trying to get, and you
Right.
know what you're going to have to do to get that, and you know that everything's not on the up and up. That's a sign right there. When it sounds too good to be true, obviously it
Fair
is. Like
enough.
you're not going to be doing the best things, and I hear her. I see her getting a lot of backlash for being a criminal, but they didn't have that same energy for Scott Lang and Ant Man. When my boy, at the beginning of the movie, he's coming out of prison. He's coming out of jail
That's true.
initially, and nobody fussed at him. And he's got his whole little heist crew that's with him. They were pretty funny in Ant Man, but they're not giving that same flack to Ant Man. Even though I mean that's not a real popular movie, but I enjoyed it. And but I didn't
Mhm.
hear the complaints that I'm getting on Riri that I see. Ant Man
Gotcha.
should have been getting those same complaints. We
So the
also see.
complaints, sorry,
Go ahead.
sorry. So are the complaints you're seeing, cuz I haven't seen, I've heard that people have been complaining, but I haven't directly seen what the complaints are. So are people complaining that they're leaning too much or not enough into her doing bad things or something, or being kind of a villain?
They're basically it's too stereotypical, and she's a criminal. Is she can't be a hero because she's a criminal and all that. And I'm like, you didn't have that same energy for other.
Most of the main folks in the main gamut are
Yeah,
criminals.
yeah.
Tony Stark is a criminal.
So yeah, he's a I'm not gonna say he's an f up. Basically, I just think Riri has that in common with him. They're two geniuses that are basically f ups that happen to have other attributes that make up for it, or
Yeah.
basically boost them beyond. But now that
Yeah.
she's got no funding and then she got kicked out of MIT, so she lost the backing of the foundation. She decides to go back and collect her belongings. This was a really funny scene. And I think one of the other students, when they're asking security, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just making sure she doesn't take anything that's not hers. And she begins to slowly assemble her iron suit that she created at MIT. And the girl says, she made that with her own grant money. So technically that's still hers. She starts putting it on. And this was a funny scene where they have I guess the school AI that was put into the suit and ask her for her student ID number in order to continue. I'm like, first of all, why were you able to get off the ground before confirming all this? And she flies from Boston to Chicago, and just as she gets to Chicago, somehow the AI realizes she's been expelled from school, her credentials have been canceled, and she ends up crashing because the AI just quits and all system won't even let her do manual flight in the suit. She crashes back in the south side of Chicago, and everybody's kind of making fun of her. Um, and then she goes and sees her mom. There's a strained relationship there. We meet a young kid named Landon who helps her carry the suit to the apartment. Um, and then we're getting bits and pieces of a tragedy that befell her. Because in the opener of the show, you see her and her best friend Natalie, and they're talking about how she wants to be iconic and better than Stark, better than Jobs. You know, she's naming all these people in the tech industry that are formidable giants, basically, and she's going to be greater than all of them combined. And then she asks her friend Natalie, "What do you want?" She's like, first she says something smart, like, "I just want a night with Thor and his hammer," and then she's like, "I just want to be happy." And I kind of got a hint that something was going to be tragic when they open with that, and then we no longer see that character after that until we start seeing these little flashbacks of what happened to that character, which we'll get into more when we start discussing the second episode. So the suit took her home, kind of, basically got her to the city. She crashed out, has to hobble her way back, and we see her mom and I forget the actress name, Freddie, basically from a different world, who's also on Abbott Elementary.
Oh, Cree Summer.
Cree Summer is there, and they're discussing Riri as she walks into the apartment, and her mom is worried about her, and apparently she's been keeping tabs via the janitor at MIT, and knows she got kicked out. Uh, yeah, Cree starts saging around her because she brought some negative energy to the house, and they're all laughing and joking about it. Her mom already knew beforehand that she got kicked out, and now she's basically having to figure out where she's going to go from here. And what's the guy's name? Zay, one of her friends, or Trevor or Trent? What's
I can't remember,
she
but I know
calls
who
him
you're.
Zay. She says text. I think when she's in the air initially, she says, "Can you text Trent and tell him to meet me at my mom's house?" But then when they're together, she calls him something else, like a nickname, I guess. And we learn later that this kid is the brother to the Natalie character that we see in the opener. And apparently, it was a tragedy that befell the dad of Zay and Natalie, and Natalie herself ends up getting killed. And it's part of what's making life kind of so difficult for Riri. She's still dealing with that loss, and I guess haven't really dealt with that with her mom, because her mom confronts her about that. She takes an early exit and escapes with the friend, and mom was not done discussing everything, and she's like, "Nope, I'm out." He's like, "I'll talk to you tomorrow." And she's like, "Nope, how about now? Let's roll." And she rolls out with him. But this is what I meant by initially, that this is substantive. It's not just dealing with superhero stuff. This is real life stuff that people deal with, and so that can kind of inform you on how a character will move and develop under the circumstances. And you're right. The iron suit. Everybody wants to know why she's making iron suits. You have any thoughts on that?
You mean like the audience or the people in the show? Why is she making iron suits?
That's what everybody keeps questioning. Like, why do you? Her mom even says it. Why do you got to build
Oh,
that? And she's like, because I can. And we find out later that that phrase is basically how the stepdad used to say that. You know, why would you when you can just transfer in another engine into this car, because he had an auto mechanic shop. It'd be more efficient. Why just build this thing from scratch when you can just take another engine and drop it in there? And he says, because I can. And that becomes a mantra that she's adopted. Like, why do you do this crazy stuff? Why are you going to build an iron suit when it's so expensive? It's so resource intensive. It's not like not putting together a bike or even a car engine. This thing is going to take lots of money. And we also learned that she hasn't, it makes sense why she had the school's AI. And I couldn't understand that at first. Why is the school AI in the suit? Because she was having a hard time making her own AI. Her
ah,
Jarvis.
got you.
Yeah. So that makes sense. And people that want to see development, to me, this is development. This isn't a Mary Sue. She doesn't have unlimited resources, and she also doesn't have everything figured out from the get go. And we're getting to see the initial struggle of her trying to create her own AI within the suit that'll mesh well, that'll operate as well, and be as good or better than we see for Jarvis in Iron Man's suits, and they kind of twist in an interesting creation for this new AI in the second episodes. Uh, will the real Natalie please stand up? We get to finally see a twist on the Eminem. Will the real Slim Shady please stand up? Which is interesting. Uh, and we see that she, at the end of the episode, I think she falls asleep with the nodes on her um, head, and the computer is basically mapping the AI from her brain scan somehow. And it takes a whole bunch of energy to do this, and she falls asleep. And at the time that she's falling asleep, you see that she's still thinking and remembering her friend Natalie and the tragedy that befell them. So that kind of makes sense of how that all comes together. And it's not just a digital rendering, but later on we see the mom says when she meets the AI, like she has her mannerisms, her speech patterns, like everything, because they're going off her memory.
It's really impressive. I mean, the on several for several reasons. I mean, just the fact she was able to do it, period. But two, I thought the fact that like her representation of her best friend seems so accurate that another person could recognize it as
Mhm.
like a spitting living image of her best friend. And to me, that is amazing just because I'm like, you saw this person so clearly
Yeah,
that someone else could recognize them and also see them as themselves. And so I don't know, to me it was just such a profound act of love
yeah,
and clearly showcasing like their friendship um which is also on another level to me revolutionary just to see um like a loving friendship between two women and how strong it was, and also two black women at that. Like, I love that. I feel like I don't know if you've ever heard of or seen the movie Beaches. Um,
vaguely remember that movie. Yeah.
yeah, but I feel like I would love to see a movie where like black women have their their beaches movie. And I
Mhm.
don't know, I just felt like to me that felt like a beaches moment. Like
Mhm.
she loved her best friend so much that she was able to replicate her so spot on.
Yeah,
And she's so melded into her consciousness that she was able to replicate that. So I don't know, that was profound and
it's a
poignant to
deep,
me.
yeah, it's a deep thing. Also, why it initially when she's introduced to her, it freaks her out
Yeah.
because your best friend is not with us anymore, and
That's
now
your
you
deepest
wake up.
wish.
Yeah,
That's like your
you,
deepest wish. If someone you love that deeply dies, like the thing you want the most is just to see them one more time
yeah,
and to see them in full flesh, like
yeah.
not quite flesh, but next best thing, damn near.
And the
Crazy.
AI doesn't seem to recognize at first that it is actually an AI, acting as if it is Natalie a lot of the time,
Isn't
which
that
I think is
crazy?
a sore spot for Riri. And she's like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? You weren't here. Like, I created you by accident. You're a mistake that I'm gonna, because they're for a moment they make it seem like let me just erase you and start over with another AI, and she doesn't have time. Uh, Also, in this episode, we're introduced finally to Stu and the crew, the heist crew that's working under Hood. There's also been lots of complaints about Slug. I like Slug. I like the whole crew. The heist crew is cool to me. What is it? Rampage. He's trying to get Stu's trying to get them to call him Rampage because she goes with Zay to the I don't know. Is this like a low budget Radio Shack where they're just getting transistors and parts that she's going to cobble together something for a PS5 controller and then create. It's kind of low budget when you're trying to break down a PS5 controller, some transistors, some other things to make your Iron Man suit out of when that thing's supposed to have you flying over in the sky like that. To me, sounds dangerous, and she doesn't have the money because she doesn't have the foundation anymore, and homie John just slides in there, who's like the number one right hand man for Hood, slides in and pays for it. Again, street smarts.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair
Ain't
enough.
nothing for free.
That's true. That's true.
And if I roll up in a store with the cart full of stuff and somebody just arbitrarily walks up and tries to pay for what I'm purchasing, I'm thinking there's going to be some type of strings attached to that. She should already know you don't want these people in your pocket.
So I wonder, maybe it's a thing where, like we know she lives in Chicago, so maybe, but maybe she's been sheltered, you know, uh, kind of,
Yeah,
by her family to where, like, obviously she must have learned enough to keep herself safe
yeah,
living where she lives. But, maybe there was also a layer of sheltering to maybe not understand. I don't know. I think what you're right to be confused.
yeah.
Cuz it's kind of like you should clock this. You should. But I wonder if it's just a difficulty of like navigating people with resources in tech. Like I wonder if it's a disconnect for her. I don't know.
Maybe. But yeah, but being back home, like when I go back home in Chicago for C2E, so I'm on my P's and Q's. I'm looking around still, and it's 20 something 30 years later. I just know, and
Yeah.
I feel like she should know when someone slides in like that with, especially when talking about a lot of money, and then he tells her, you're gonna take your change, Miss Williams, and all the things he's throwing out there verbally. He's telling you he's been following her kind of too closely, and you don't know this person.
I think there is some validity in her having a disconnect between like people with a bunch of money in tech versus people in general in Chicago are just having a sense of awareness in Chicago because in the scene where she's kind of talking to her friend after they got the parts, she says something to the effect of like everyone here seems so small or like
Small.
Chicago seems so small. And
Yeah.
so maybe that's just how she's thinking of it. She thinks people with resources are bigger. And so she doesn't have the same kind of skills to navigate those people the same way. And so maybe she's giving way too much leeway and, adopting unconsciously a sense of naivety about these people.
Mhm.
So
Or it's a sense of entitlement for someone of her genius thinking, well, I'm supposed to have resources. And
fair
these
enough.
resources just so happen to fall into my lap. And the reason they fallen into my lap is because I'm a genius. Like, of course, somebody's gonna front the money because they know, people around here know what I can really do. It's just I don't have the resources at my disposal. They've fallen into my lap. I'm gonna roll with it because otherwise I'm not gonna be able to keep doing what I'm doing. And I don't have a plan right now. She's kind of floundering after being kicked out of school, falling from the sky in front of her city and being talked about as she walks home. And now she's dealing with the emotional baggage of the tragedy that befell her and her mom that her relationship is not necessarily good with. So she's like, this is a dub right now. I'm gonna go ahead and take the wins where I can get them, and I'm just gonna keep rolling with the punches. We'll figure out the rest later. And then we have the whole additive of this new AI, which is bringing up a lot of bad memories, good memories and bad memories. They're all kind of twisted into one with you facing a person that you've lost, at least a representation, a good and eerily similar representation of the person that you've lost.
Yeah.
Um,
This is it also, like, and I know I spoke of all that stuff about it being like a huge act of love and it being very poignant, which it is, but this is also deeply traumatic. I feel like if anybody else, if that, any normal person, like if I was put myself in Riri's shoes,
mhm,
like this is a deeply traumatic experience to
yeah,
for that to have happened, and she's not okay, which is they explore that,
yeah.
that later on, which I'm very happy about.
One thing I'm interested to ask: do you remember hearing a hint of this in Wakanda Forever when we're initially introduced to Riri? I don't recall hearing anything about her facing a tragedy back home because this is Wakanda
I
Forever to me was previous to her getting the foundation. She had an internship in Wakanda, which as an isolationist country is amazing that had technological. I wonder why she wouldn't rely more on Wakanda, especially her and Shuri seem to hit it off. Um, I
That's a
don't
good
know.
question. I mean, I I don't know, because I know that, like you said, the show takes place after Wakanda Forever, and you said she did her internship in Wakanda, so I don't know. I mean, maybe there were hard limits in for uh, in Wakanda for her.
Yeah.
Maybe she had to go back. Um, you know, I don't know. We don't know if there was an agreement between her and Wakanda for a set amount of time she was
Mm.
meant to study there, or if it was self imposed, where she was like, I want to go back and finish school there. I want to take what I've learned and apply it to school. Um, but I agree with you. I think a solution that would make sense would be for her to stay in Wakanda and have them front whatever resources she would need to continue exploring what needs to be done because they got it. So,
Or at least reach out to Shuri and explain the situation. Like, look, we kind of hit it off as sisters, and we're both young upcoming tech geniuses, and this is what happened. The program fell through at MIT. Can we work something out where I can continue my work with Wakanda? I've already been there. It's not like y'all should be trusted. I was there. I've already been there. Can we do something and figure it out that way rather than going to the streets? I forget which episode they introduced the crew. Was it the episode 1 where we're introduced to Hood's crew, the heist crew, or is it the second episode?
um,
Where we see the first failed heist. I think it's the second episode because then that's no, it is the first episode
yeah,
because that's what makes John start following her around. Because we saw Stu mess up and he's supposed to have the security down for whatever they're trying to steal out of this little mansion. And we see everybody else on point doing their job. And because uh, they end up actually fighting and not getting away clean, from the heist that we see. And so they drop that nugget, I guess, to show their need for somebody in tech. And who's it? Andre something? What's the guy named Stu that plays Stu, the comedian?
oh, Eric Andre.
Eric Andre. There it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, he wants him to call him Rampage. Nobody in the team's calling him Rampage. They're like, Stu, no, we're not doing this Rampage stuff. It's like everybody else got code names with me. It's like, yeah, because everybody else's code name is cool. Y'all is just dumb. Uh, so yeah, we see them fail at that heist, and that was the reason for kind of aligning John on the orders of Hood. I think actually when she's crashing, yeah, when she's crashing is what Hood sees. Parker, uh, Hood sees her crash, and but he doesn't see her crash. He sees her fly by.
Yeah.
And so, and he explains to John, like, these people here we got now, they're software. We need some hardware. And just to that moment, they see some hardware fly by and don't see the remnants of her crashing down. But that's what puts that into it that they need this other crew member, and she is put through the ringer, I believe, in the second episode, where we've seen this in the trailer, where she goes into the elevator at the place of business. I think it's like a pizza shop or something that's supposedly closed. The door is open and they set a trap and see if she can get out. And she beats Stu's record, and she's introduced to the crew. He offers her money as a down payment. Like I said, that's a red flag to me. He opens up the thing with all the cash right there, and she even says herself, "This isn't exactly legal." And he's like, "Well, nah, it's not necessarily legal, but basically we rob corporations." And they're basically illegal in themselves, which doesn't make it any better. But I can see the rationale. Like we're gonna go take money and Robin Hood, we're gonna steal from the rich, but these are like the corrupt rich supposedly. But
Also, I also think, to your point, she also should have clocked. I think she starts to clock it, further on, but I also feel like, you know, they're taking money from the rich, but also they're not like they're buying their way into the corporations.
yeah, strong arming them.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Uh,
Yeah,
eh, th- that part I was like, that doesn't seem right. Like I feel
yeah,
like you should leave at that if you are already not going to leave prior,
yeah,
I feel like at that I'm like, you try and join them. You
yeah. They're strong arming corporations, and we see once she finally agrees to work with them, Parker lets her know that we're gonna need that iron suit tonight, and she created the AI, but she's trying to go around using the AI. And in her search for parts, she ends up meeting uh, Ezekiel, but he gives over another name, Joe, in somewhere off in the suburbs where he's got a cache of dangerous tech remnants, weapons, RPGs with his live, love, and laugh signs, basically black market. And she kind of blackmails him into giving her what she wants. Cause like, no, I didn't see any money exchange, obviously, between them. She just like, you have something that's illegal. Either you gonna give me what I need, or I may just have to tell folks what you got going on here. So she basically blackmails him, which isn't a good thing. That you're now also blackmailing folks, but it's the only way that she can join this heist and complete her suit. And she does. And at the last moment, I think she allows the AI Natalie to assist in that. And so, which I think is good because AI Natalie is the reason I think she starts kind of digging more into something ain't quite right about this situation. You know it, I know it. Um, we need to get a piece of that hood and investigate. So she's doing weird stuff to try and get the hood by itself, and it's a whole rigmarole. She almost dies. It seems like when they go into
Yeah.
because she dropped the because she got scared by Natalie.
Yeah.
She got spooked and dropped the thumb drive, which had the virus on it that Slug had put together that was gonna basically stop the transpo system and give Hood a chance to get the CEO by herself and uh, basically strong arm them into a partnership or making them. What do you do? He made them employees of the company on salary, like no
Yeah.
questions asked. Like you just gonna
Yeah.
pay us
They wanted to be on the payroll, and I think
full
they wanted,
benefits.
yeah, with benefits, and I think they wanted like stake in the company as like a silent partner to make
Yeah,
decisions, something like that.
yeah. They're getting
Yeah.
stock options in the company payroll without really having to do anything.
I
And
was like,
at the
this is not Robin Hood stuff. Robin Hood is not robbing the rich to become the rich.
yeah, yeah, he's doing what he's got to do, and because that's his argument is like, hey, why do you? The same question comes up. You ask me why I do what I do. Why do you do what you would do? Why do you build these iron suits? I'm sure you, in your mind, you have a good reason for doing what you do, but they're successful in this second heist that we see, despite it being coming a little hairy now and then for Riri. They get back and they want to celebrate, and obviously Riri doesn't feel happy because she knows, you know what I mean? She
Yeah.
knows something's not quite right about the situation. Natalie, too, is now her eyes and ears within the suit, peeping how things are going. So you can tell there's a conflict brewing when she starts asking questions about Parker. And John kind of peeps that. He's like, "Well, you ask a lot of questions. Like, you sure you're not the police or something? What you asking all these questions for?" Uh,
Like, why are we not asking questions? I mean, obviously the red flag is that like, all right, you agreed to do it. It's a handshake agreement.
yeah,
Is what it was. There's no contract signed, no ratification, no what's the name? No one to verify anything, no notaries, no nothing.
yeah,
Just a handshake.
yeah.
And so I'm like, I, yeah, yeah.
And we get the same feel in episode 3, excuse me. We in Danger Girl is the title of it, and Riri is uncomfortable about being a part of Parker's crew. With more heists, and they're going to keep going. And it's obvious. This is the other thing. It's obvious once you start doing this, they're not going to let you go. Like you
Yeah,
thinking,
you've seen too much. So now you gotta fight your way out.
yeah,
You
blood
have
in,
to.
blood out. You're
Yep.
not just going to start doing this high profile robberies with us, and we just going to let you go on your merry way because at any time you could snitch on us. We're not.
Yep.
No, it's it's for life right now. You're not going. Plus, people get used to certain lifestyles when they get that amount of money, and how many companies they're going to do this to.
Yep.
So they go about this weird plan. They have some other tech mogul that they're robbing that has like sealed, almost like the raft, like the prison that's out in the sea. But he's got this little hydroponics and mushrooms growing out in these various greenhouses that are sealed off, and you can't bring metals in. So I don't know how the crew figured any of them that she was gonna get in there without the suit. Because I don't think she was supposed to go in. She was just supposed to be running security sweeps and basically disarming things from the outside. I think Slug did that. She disarmed like the cameras from outside, and then they had a certain groups that were supposed to go in there. Hood ran in there by himself, basically to get the CEO dude by himself, and the she gets out of her suit and then finds her way in by swimming below this little station in the sea, and then gets in. And once, if it notices tech or metals in there, there's a thing that goes off that'll shut the oxygen or flood the place with carbon dioxide, so they won't be able to breathe in there. So we see that almost happen a few times. They're hinting at it. Eventually, we know what's going to happen, and it does. But stuff goes haywire. Um, did he get the signature from dude?
No,
Yeah,
he refused. He
he
was like,
refused.
yeah,
He ends up killing dude. Uh, Riri manages to steal a piece of the cloak, the hood that Hood had, that he goes invisible with. Gets into a crazy fight with John that he's like, I knew something was wrong. Parker is telling me to be cool. I knew you wasn't cool, but you were part of the recruitment process. Like, if you didn't know that, then why didn't you just say something beforehand, not even introduce her to the crew if you knew something was going to be up? That didn't make any sense to me. But they go through a fight, and Riri is losing badly till they make it to some place where the suit can come in and basically rescue her. What's up, Hash? It's all good, man. We are just here discussing Ironheart, the TV show on Disney Plus. If you haven't watched yet, and Hulu, because this Disney Plus own Disney owns both Hulu and Disney Plus. So that's what we're doing. Talking Riri Williams, Ironheart, Marvel Studios TV show. But yeah, John ends up. This is the crazy. Well, spoilers if you haven't started yet.
yeah, man, get
Um,
out of here
you
if you
may,
don't want if you don't want to be spoiled.
yeah. We're talking the third episode currently, and episodes 4 through 6 come out tomorrow. Um, okay, I'm
Okay.
good. Um, so yeah, this heist does not go as planned. Everybody barely gets out. The suit is able to kind of go in there and rescue a few of the other teammates before coming last for Riri and getting her in the midst of her fight with John as the carbon dioxide is starting to suffocate them both. Uh, the suit and Natalie grab Riri and then they shut the hatch on John and let him die. And then we learned last minute that she dropped not only the piece of the cloak, but the tech that
Yeah,
she
that's
borrowed.
right. We didn't even talk about that guy.
We
Um,
did. I
oh, we did. Oh,
vaguely.
okay, okay,
That's the
okay.
one. Joe was the guy she was blackmailing.
Yes,
That
yeah.
we learn later is Obadiah Stane's son. Who those of y'all that watch the Marvel movies know that Obadiah tried to kill Tony Stark. And I think it was Iron Man 2 where he gets killed.
Is he?
The
That's the
second
guy
one.
who was like, he built this in the cave. Is that
Yeah,
guy right? Yeah.
yeah. So this is the son of Obadiah Stane, that character, Ezekiel Stane. And he gives her the real name and she starts to call him Zeke after getting that information. So that was a cool little Easter egg that we see. But now, yeah, we're faced with the cliffhanger at the end of episode 3 where she's left not only her own, I think there's DNA evidence because she somehow had this uh sheath, like this little skin sheath that was holding this like laser in her wrist area. And so the piece of the cloak is there. I'm sure her DNA is there. And the tech that she got from Zeke is all left behind. And that was the
Yep.
one thing he wanted. Like, please make sure that none of this
Gets back to
comes
me.
back to me.
Yep.
And now
And so
it's going
she
to be
failed. She
interesting.
failed. She failed on all
Yeah,
fronts.
she failed on all 3 fronts. So it's going to be interesting to see how she either gets out of this, if she can recover it, or will this just be another stain on her publicly if this comes out that she was a part of this heist that killed the
I'm
CEO?
I'm very interested to see how dig of a hole they're gonna have her dig herself.
Yeah,
And if they're gonna do ex machina her solution, or if if it's gonna be a get it out the mud kind of thing,
yeah.
like how that's gonna go. What do you think? The I forget the guy with the cape. I forget his name, but what do you think his
Parker.
motivations? Yeah, Parker.
Yeah, I think that cloak, because it is magic. Remember, they kind of discussed that when she has like a one-on-one conversation with him, and
She was like, "Is it vibranium?" She
what is
asked
it?
him.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
he's like magic, and Riri's like magic is basically science that y'all just can't explain. Is what it is. You don't have the uh intellectual fortitude to explain to me what's going on, so you just say it's magic and then explain that away without really giving me an explanation. I
right.
do think it's something that he kind of whispers and talks to, or at least it's whispering talking to him. Because remember at the end when he finds out his boy died, he's yelling, "I trusted you," and he's trusting in that cloak. I think there's an entity. I don't think Jordan and I were talking about it. He was trying to say Mephisto. I hope it's not Mephisto, but I think there's an entity, a dark entity that's obviously harming Parker simultaneously as he's using it. But since it's giving him what he wants, he's not being wary of the dangers of having that cloak.
Do you wonder, and forgive me if I sound hyper ignorant, because I don't know all of the comic lore, but I know Doctor Doom is kind of their next big bad they're trying to lead up to with
Yeah,
their this next arc. Do you feel like this installment with Ironheart, like whatever magic that's in this cape, will somehow connect to Doctor Doom? And how do you, if so, how do you think that they might do that?
I think we may get some tidbits because you know how they like to connect things, but I don't think this is it. I don't think that's
Okay.
the connector is not going to be this good
Okay.
to Doctor Doom, but we may get some Easter eggs that are going to connect them because they like to have these things kind of enmeshed, even if it's slightly, so that they're all kind of connected and drop little nuggets here and there for you. I do think it's some type of dark entity or evil, demonic, because you see the thing happening with the tattoos on his back too, as well, trying to hide the scarring. Even though I forget what her name is, the girl who got slammed down by John
Yeah. Yeah.
said she saw, she's I saw Hood one time without his shirt off. He's fine, but he had scales. So I think the tattoos are meant to cover up whatever scales that were growing on his back, and it's just kind of a whole little thing with that. So I think there's an entity within the cloak, and as the season plays out, I think we'll get more and more. Uh, the cloak may be the puppeteer of all this, and we just don't know it yet. There may be some hidden force, like he might be the underboss, and we haven't met the boss yet. That's over him,
Gotcha.
and the cloak has something to do that. But we'll see. Um, I've liked it thus far, despite all the complaining I've seen online.
I've enjoyed
Um,
it.
I've enjoyed it.
I feel like it's doing a lot of revolutionary things.
Mhm.
I also loved at the end of episode 3 how, all of this stuff came crashing down for her,
Yeah,
and, her friend was like, "Listen, chickens come home to roost." Okay? The AI, and then
yeah,
she had finally had to let it out that she was not okay. She's like, "I'm
yeah,
not good. I am not good." And I well, for one, I felt very proud of her for being able to say it out loud because I feel like
yeah,
the episodes leading up to that, were illustrating, hey, you've got a lot of really intense stuff happening that you're not dealing with at all.
yeah,
You're not willing to look at it, you're not willing to feel it, or acknowledge it at all. And so a lot of stuff went bad all at once for her to get to a point to just be like, I'm not good. I'm not good, man. And so I'm happy for this arc that they're gonna have her go on of um, emotional intelligence and emotional growth, of healing, and acknowledging your pain. I feel like that's the thing. Uh, just even mentioning mental health,
yeah,
exploring mental health in this character,
yeah,
and specifically a black woman
yeah,
who's going through what she's going through in her circumstances. So
yeah.
I'm really happy about that.
And I shouldn't be surprised, but it's Ryan Coogler, but there's a lot of like we're talking about. There's a lot of depth to this show, and all the complaints where I feel like a lot of people out there are just ignoring it because they don't want to watch certain things, and that's all it is. It's not, and the review bombing before the show is even out. That's horrible. But I like it. I like all the characters. And some of them are annoying, but I think it's a discussion we've probably had before. I think some characters written purposefully to be annoying, like that's their job.
Yeah.
I am curious to see how Zay is going to take it when he finds out Riri created an AI identical representation of his lost sister because her mother has met the AI, but Zay has not. And because he keeps those beat up headphones that his sister had borrowed from him, and the reason why he put the recording of her voice into the music that he created when he made the mixtape, I think it's going to really rock him once he finally sees this AI representation of his lost sister. And I don't know whether he's going to embrace that, but I have a feeling he's going to be angry at Riri for
Like you
even
might
doing that.
demonize it and her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's going to be hot, I think. That'll be an interesting conflict to see emotionally in the midst of all the other stuff that's going on. Whether she ends up being labeled as a criminal because of the evidence left behind, and we've seen that a few times with Marvel, with Civil War, with Spider-Man, labeled as a criminal for a while when things kind of go wrong and they have to kind of work their way back out, and we see whether they try and do so within the system, but of course because they're genius and have powers or what have you, they kind of circumvent all that. It'll be interesting to see how they deal with it.
I'm interested in what's going to happen with the team. Like how like to what extent this team is going to fall apart.
Yeah,
Because it will fall apart.
yeah,
Uh so I'm curious in which direction they're going to take all of that.
and who they side with. Are they
Yeah.
going to side with Hood because he's been running the gamut the whole time and setting all this up, or will they find will they? I think old girl is going to I forget the pyrotechnic person when it builds the explosive that got slammed. She
Right.
may be one of them that sides with Riri.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because she was kind of done bad. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chop it up with me about this. We'll regroup and talk episodes 4 through 6 next week if you have time on Monday.
Yep.
And then later this week, Thursday, for everybody that missed the live, we will be putting this up on Spotify for you to watch there, the Askari cast. And as usual, there will be links to both of our websites if you're interested in our creative endeavors, me as an author and a comic writer, and Jocelyn as an artist, as well as a comic writer. Eventually, when she gets bears out there to us. Appreciate you all taking the time out of your day to listen to us yap on about these things. And hope you all have a wonderful week. And we will talk to you next time.
Yeah.
Peace.